Hello, fellow traders. 'Tis I, TheRumpledOne, coming to you on Wednesday, January the 22nd, the year's 2020. Let's talk trading. Decisions. Trading is a series of decisions. From the beginning, you have to decide to trade. Then you decide what market to trade, whether it's the Forex market, the stock market, commodities, futures, metals, on and on and on. Then you have to decide which instrument do you trade within that market. Do I trade the pound dollar, dollar yen, euro yen, Australian, New Zealand? That's another decision. Then you decide how much you want to risk. Maybe you open your account with $100 or $10,000 or more or less. Maybe after you make that decision, then you decide how much risk you want to take, your bet size, let's say. Do you want to risk 1% of your account per trade? 10%? Maybe it's a flat dollar amount. Then I think I already mentioned you pick method. Now you say, what time a day do I trade? Some markets are open almost 24/7. Some are only open a certain amount of time. You pick the time slot. Then you sit in front of your trading platform and you decide whether or not to enter a trade and the direction that you enter. So you see, there's a whole lot of decisions, but some of them you just make once for the most part. You might review it, like maybe you start off, like I started off trading the stock market. I traded a few options, but it really wasn't my thing, even though I did come up with a pretty good strategy, a decade or so ago. Then you might change your mind on a few other things. You might decide that, hey, trading's just not your thing and stop trading. So, the reason I brought this up about decisions is, as we like to say, we like to keep it simple. So, you might want to take a look at how many decisions you have to make to enter a trade. Maybe, is it one? Is it two? Is it three? Is it more than three? Because as you're sitting there and as you're making these decisions, your brain starts to wear down, wear out, and you might make a decision that cost you money. So you might not even be aware of the decisions you're making. So in your spare time, you might just get out a piece of paper and pen or pencil, or maybe type it up on the computer and list out all the decisions you have to make and see which ones can be eliminated. Maybe see which ones can be slightly modified. And you might even have to add a decision in. But that decision's up to you. But out of all the decisions, you have to decide to use your risk management on each and every trade. Because if you don't, you might find yourself losing more than you're willing to lose on any particular trade. And that's not a good thing. Now, boys and girls, fellow traders, remember, these videos are for educational purposes only, and your results may differ from mine. And trading's risky. So, if you're seeking trading advice, financial advice, investment advice, seek your advice from an accredited financial professional. One of those people that have a certificate on the wall that basically says they know what they're talking about. That way, If you lose your money by taking their advice or letting them manage your money, you know you lost your money from someone who has an accredited who is an accredited financial professional and has a certificate on the wall that basically says they knew what they were talking about when they lost your money. Rather than taking advice from some guy who makes YouTube videos, maybe has a funny name, or some trader who posts things out on the internet or sends you things in your email or in your snail mail. Okay, disclaimers out of the way. Looking at the weekly chart here, we see the dollar yen, but notice all the gaps have filled. So, boys and girls, I show you this every week. And once again, your results may differ from mine, but these gaps usually fill. Now, dollar yen, as you can see, is about, halfway through the previous week's candle. So we've come back. We've reversed off of the weekly high, or last week's high, of 44 pips. This week's high, we reversed 37 pips. We're 9 pips off the low. So you can see we're 9 pips. So we're in the green rat zone. We've got the euro up here, 136 pips below the open. Now, notice we're in these wick zones right here. So price could go the other way. But if it cracks, remember, I am looking for the euro to come down to about the 101.15.16 area to fill, to come back to the open of this big green bar. And switching back to dollar yen. There's a big green bar there. You can see here it already did that once. So we're heading back towards the open right now. As you can see, hit the midpoint, actually crossed above it, and then dropped back below it. Still 102 pips above the yearly open and monthly open, since this is the first month. As you can see here, we entered into the range of the first day of the week, which happens to be an inside bar, and then we fell back out 22 pips. And here on the weekly buy zone, notice we came across it, failed to close above it, so it closed below it right here, signaling a short. Closed above it here, closed below it, and you can see. And once again, there's a nice big green candle, and you can see we went right back to that open. So on these big candles, all I'm doing is this is an eyeball trade. You see it? Okay. And you say, I'm looking for signs to go short. So like you see this big red candle, you look for signs to go long. So you see it's coming out of these wick zones. So if you're trading towards here, you want to see a low, maybe a low, then come up through a wick zone. See here, it made a low, and you can make money that way. You could trade the weekly open and just trade the crosses, and you could trade the buy zone. So there's lots of different ways to trade it. Okay. Now back to the euro. We're in the inside bar. Now this is very interesting. You see, we barely got through the top by about 2 pips. So there wasn't much to be had there. And as far as the bottom, we didn't quite break it. We were like 1 point above it. See, at 697 versus 696. So that's why you do not rush the trade. And if we switch over to the dollar yen, we've already seen it. That was the inside bar trade. Range, we've got 6-7 over 100. Interesting, I noticed dollar Canadian is over 100. I haven't looked at that pair in a while. And as you can see, we broke out of the previous days, and you can see all these wick zones, price just shot right up and through it. Also broke through there. And see, once again, we got one of those big candles. Look for price to come back to that open. And there's another big candle. So look for price to eventually return to that open. And switching back over to the dollar yen. And you can see here we're right at the daily open. And here's an H1 lowest open. We're 20 past the hour at this time, 21 past the hour now. So there's a buy zone trade. I'm sorry, there is a whole low, the lowest open trade right here, which is also in the rat zone. Now the buy zone, we've already gone through the buy zone, the south side. There's the short zone right there. We're at the open. We're below the weekly open. So it gives us a short bias. We've already taken out the pivot point, which was sitting right in the middle of the buy zone. So traders, usually the pivot bias is when the pivot is outside the buy zone, but because our ranges have been so narrow, it's now inside the buy zone. So if you want to do that pivot fade trade, you have to get in right near the open and go towards and trade towards that pivot. Rat zone range too low on the dollar yen. On the euro, on the other hand, the range is too low. So as you can see, some of our favorite traders just don't have the range it used to. As you can see, we took out the pivot. We took out that weekly pivot that I had mentioned before. So now that pivot's cleared. You can see here, we took out the pivot. We're sitting at a doji right now. For you euro traders, we took out the pivot, took out that missed pivot yesterday. Still have a missed pivot here, right there, one for 2020. Oh, might as well show you the weekly. That was taken out as well. Here, we've got a missed pivot from last week, right there on the weekly. As to be expected, price doesn't like staying between horizontal lines here, but open between 80 and 90 and wound up here and came back. So just remember, once price gets between a couple horizontal lines, chances are it's going to exit. See, we started in the wick zone and we came back to the wick zone. Oh, I remember, fellow traders, especially new traders, one thing, the donational indicators, I'm not selling indicators. You get the entire year batch. You don't get this pick indicators. I'm not open for business for indicators. So let me just let you know. And also there was a trader that was having a little difficulty with font sizes, and what the heck just happened there? Did I went the wrong way. And I was just wanting to show something here, or double check something I should say. Where is it? So right here, your button height and width and font size. This is where you control the buttons. so you make sure you can see all 6 characters. So fellow traders, just remember, it's not what you trade, it's how you trade it. So go out there and drain the banks.